Hey guys, I know that we did a Google Meet and I recorded it, but apparently I did something wrong, so it didn't record. Story of my life. So I'm going to re-record reading this to you and then post it in our Google Classroom for those who did not make it to our meeting today. So, chapter 1. This I know we talked about in our Google Meet, so I'll just refresh. So we did choose The Darkest Hour, which is about a 16-year-old girl who is a spy slash assassin for the French government, French and American government, against the Nazis, which is actually during this time period very common because not only were girls not suspected to do anything like this, younger girls, like 16-year-old, 15-year-old girls, were definitely not expected to do stuff like this, and so they were able to be sneaky and do what they needed to do for the government. So this is based off of true events, but again, it's a historical fiction, meaning made up characters in the book, but actually the events that happened did really happen. So, and this is based during World War II, and it's right now we're in France for 1943. So, chapter 1. My good Catholic mother taught me to never lie, cheat, or steal. I pray she can forgive me I pray that she can forgive me then for what I've agreed to do, and for this sin will be far worse. I hurried down the cramped streets of the Marist district, leaping over the fresh rain puddles and smoothing the creases of my skirt. The black skirt drags at my feet, and I hope I don't look too much like a fraud, because I certainly feel like one. It's been months since I've knelt for communion, and even longer since I've elbowed into a confessional booth. Yet here I am, rosary in hand, dressed like a sour-faced Sister McDowell, who'd wrap my knuckles in Latin class when she caught me reading Nancy Drew. But getting my knuckles bruised is small change compared to what I've been up to these last 6 months. If my mother could see me now, if she could discover what I've been training for, I'm sure she'd weep for my poor blackened soul. But I'll tarnish my soul if that means smashing the Nazis under my boot. I owe that to Theo, don't I? I make a sharp right on Rue Charlemagne, a narrow wisp of a road that's crammed full of apartments with their curtains drawn. Behind me, the sun sinks below the crumbling gray rooftops, tired of another day of this 3-year war. I'm tempted to take off my veil and mop the sweat of my forehead, but you never know who's watching these days. The old man peddling newspapers, the little girls playing her game. Almost anyone can turn into a Nazi collaborator for a few francs in their pocket. That's life in wartime Paris for you. A church bell clang, and I quicken my stride. My target, Monsieur Travers, won't arrive at St. Paul for another 15 minutes, but I can't be late. Not this night. I've worked too hard to let Major Harkin down again. This is your last chance, Miss Blas, he told me an hour ago, just before he handed me the loaded pistol. You know what to do. Stay sharp, stay low. Don't let anyone catch a whiff of that you're an American. And above else, don't get caught. There won't be anyone coming to your rescue this time. Understood? I've given him a crisp yes, sir. Tonight will be the last time. When I made the one mistake, we ended up in a Class 3 crisis on our hands. I'll prove to Major Harkin once and for all that I belong to the covert operations and I deserve this promotion. If all goes well tonight, he and the other girls, even Sabine, will have to call me Agent. Agent Lucie Blaz. Her name is weird. I think with a small smile, Thea would have gotten a kick out of that. The smile slips promptly off my lips, however, when I hear the hum of a truck engine rumbling down the street. I don't have time to turn around to know who's behind the steering wheel. There are a few people left who can afford to drive due to the gasoline shortage in France. It can only be the Nazis. The truck winds to a stop at the intersection ahead of me, and a cluster of soldiers spill out the door, all dressed in their crisp gray uniforms. At the sight of them, the whole block holds their breath. A wrinkled woman pedaling her bicycle in the opposite direction. A young mother snatches her children from the third-floor balcony. Meanwhile, I watch the soldiers split off into a nearby apartment building. There's probably searching for a Jew who escaped from a concentration camp or a resistance member who wasn't careful enough with his radio. Whoever it was, there's nothing I can do for them aside from muttering a prayer that tastes bitter in my mouth. That's a lesson you learn quickly under Hitler's iron fist. You can't save everyone who deserves saving, so you do the next best thing. You take out the ones who don't. Gathering my skirt, I move silently towards my rendezvous with Monsieur Travers, but one last soldier hops out of the truck and strides down the sidewalk towards me. I try to retreat down a side alley, but there has been barricaded like many other streets across the city. My hand itches for my pistol, but Harkin told me to use it as a last resort. I have to rely on my wits and knife this evening, silent and deadly. That's our general plan of attack on covert ops. Never draw attention, never leave a mess. So I dip down my chin and allow my veil to fall over my shoulders, letting the soldier see nothing except for my pale cheeks and my innocent eyes. eyes of Sister Marchand, the alias I have adopted for the night. And so just so you know, alias just means like another name. And so she's pretending to be this character that's like a nun. That's what that is. The slick-and-haired soldier raises a hand to stop me. Calm and collected, I remind myself. I've been trained for moments like this. I said, "Where are you going?" he says in broken French. He can't be much older than I am, and he's a few inches shorter than me, too. But he snaps his fingers in my face like he's Napoleon himself. Speak, quickly. I'm headed to St. Paul Church, I tell him. I reply without an accent at all. My fluency is the only useful thing that my Parisian father has given me. We spoke strictly French in our apartment going back to Baltimore. If Papa heard anything else, he would get the buckle. Where are you coming from? I've spent all day at the American Hospital over on Science Street. I lie. The American Hospital, eh? I tend to the wounded and sick there. It's a true privilege to serve the Lord's children. I give him a humble smile. Forgive me. The abbess is expecting me, and if you wouldn't mind, turn out your pockets. I swallow the sourness on my tongue and reach for my skirt pocket, but apparently I'm not quick enough. What are you hiding, contraband? He throws me against the wall behind us so forcefully the veil slips an inch, revealing my ash-brown hair. I try to readjust the veil, but I freeze as the soldier's hands are roaming over me. He brushes over the rosary that is concealed, the knife, the pistol that's strapped to my ankle. Without thinking, my training kicks in. I twist away from his grasp, using a move I perfected back in Washington, until I've realized I've shown too much of my hand. His nostrils flare wide. Stupid, I tell myself. I should have left his meaty hand search, but I wasn't thinking. So stupid, Lucy. You surprise me, I say, in hopes that he's dense enough to believe me. My deepest apologies. He slaps me hard, just as Papa used to do during his drunken outbursts. What's your name? Sister Marchand. He's about to interrogate me further when another soldier comes walking towards us. By the colorful markings on his lapel, I can tell it's a commanding officer, a captain perhaps. Suddenly it's becoming much more difficult to remain calm and collected. Who have you detained now, Lieutenant? Says the captain in German. I picked up enough of their language to follow what they're saying. This sister tried to strike me, sir. We should take her in for questioning. The older man wrinkles his nose and juts a rough hand over me. Your papers, and it wasn't a request. Reluctantly, I gave him the documents that I carry. Census cards, ration cards, residence ID, and so on. They're all forgeries, meaning fake, that have been crafted by the Office of Strategic Services, the mother organization to covert ops, based in Washington, D.C. And just like my pistol, these papers are highly illegal, too. The captain scrutinizes each card, and my neck grows hot under my stiff collar. If he even catches a hint that I'm not a nun, an idea flashes through my head, and I snatch it before it flits away. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, I whisper. The words tumble out as almost like a reflex, thanks to all the times I heard Mother murmur them. Blessed art thou amongst women. A captain sighs noisily and thrusts the papers at me. That's enough. Hurry along. But, sir, the lieutenant straightens, we should question her at the very least. This stringy thing? The captain juts a thumb at me, and for once I'm glad to be called stringy. We'd be wasting our time. But she's too young to have taken her vows. Look at her. The lieutenant flicked a hand at my face. How old are you? 18. Another lie. I'm 16. Just with the right clothes, I can look younger still. But even Major Harkin doesn't know my real age, and I don't plan on telling him. 18. You barely look old enough, says the lieutenant. The colonel shakes his head. I said release her, Lieutenant. That's an order. The lieutenant's top lip curls like a slug, and he shoots me a poisonous glare. Get out of my sight, and don't be out after curfew. May the Lord bless you, I say in the smallest voice and hurry past them. One step after another, I wait for the lieutenant to run after me for more questioning. But I hear nothing except the chirping songs of birds who sing a tune so sweet that if I shut my eyes, I can almost forget that Hitler conquered half of Europe before the rest of the world laced up their boots to do something about it. Back in Maryland, the only Nazis in my life were the ones I read about in the paper or the uncensored bits of Theo's victory mail letters. But once those letters ran dry, that's when everything changed. A week after New Year's, I skipped school and headed to the Women's Army Corps and asked for a secretary job. Any job, really. But the recruiter got so excited. The recruiter got this excited look on her face when I mentioned I spoke fluent French. Not even 6 months later, I was airdropped into a new country, and now here I am, standing in Paris in the darkest hour, sent to kill a man I hardly know. Soon St. Paul's loomed over my head, standing proudly like a regal French king. A handful of parishioners shuffled through the door for evening mass, but I sneaked down to the alley that separates the church from the abandoned buildings next door. The path brings me to the church's courtyard. A simple space decorated with the wooden benches and a potted citrus tree that sweetens the air. Here the priests and nuns come to ponder the wonders of God in between their duties, but the courtyard is empty at this hour. I adjust my veil and knock on the side door 3 times. The ancient door creaks open to reveal a sliver of Father's black robe and wrinkled face. He looks a lot like the priests back at my family's parish back home, old and hunched and leathery, and he frowns at me the same. I suppose I can't blame him for that. I've asked a lot of him, maybe too much. I'm sorry I'm late, Father, I whispered. May I come in? Hesitation brims in his dim eyes. I'm afraid Monsieur Trevor hasn't arrived yet. You may have to return next week. I'm sure he's on his way. I place a careful hand on the door, a small reminder of our agreement. Father can't back out of the plans now. After weeks of coaxing, he finally decided to help us catch Rene Trevor, who had attended St. Paul for decades. Father didn't want to betray a loyal parishioner, but he came around when I told him what Trevor had done. How pious Rene accepted a handsome bribe from the Nazis and turned over 2 British airmen who had been stranded in France after their plane was struck down in the north of the city. We entrusted their care to Trevor, but he delivered them to the Germans, all for a new pair of shoes and a wallet full of cash. I think about those airmen now, both of them so young. They were fighting the Nazis just as Theo had done, and remembering that fact will make my job easier tonight. There's movements across the street, and I find the middle-aged Trevor walking past the alleyway. My pulse jumps at the sight of them. I'll be discreet like we discussed, I said to Father. Can you see to it that no one enters the courtyard for the next half hour? He grimaces. Very well. Thank you, Father. I truly am. Have mercy on Rene, as our Lord is merciful with all his children. I give him a tight smile because that's the best I can do. I told him that I would only imprison Trevor. I don't like lying to a man of cloth, but he would never agree to help me if he knew the truth of what we would do. As I turn to go, Father places a heavy hand on my shoulder. I'll say a prayer for you, my child. He slinks back into the church, and I keep my mouth shut because I doubt he'd like what I'd have to say. The truth is, despite the calmness in my fingertips, I don't need Father to watch over me tonight. I don't need his thoughts, and I certainly don't need his prayers. I can't say the same for Monsieur Trevor. Here's chapter 2. My hand curls around my rosary while I race to intercept Trevor. I had planned to greet him at his usual pew inside, but bumping into him in the open will work in my favor. The fewer people who see me, the better. Major Harkin would surely approve of that. Trevor's brown suit hugs his portly frame while his thinning hair resembles an abandoned bird nest atop of his shiny scalp. I've gotten well acquainted with Trevor's balding head. For over a month now, I've been tailing him, watching him meet with the Nazi liaisons in the perfumed shadows of the garden, seeing him smile at the leather shoes and his bribe money had afforded him. I even know what he eats for breakfast, a hot cup of beef broth thanks to the citywide coffee rations. I've learned quite a lot about Monsieur Trevor, perhaps more than even his own mother. Right before he reaches the church doors, I stumble into him and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." He jerks his elbow away, but he catches sight of my face. Sister Marchand? I nod. He has no clue of my true identity. To hide in plain sight, that's the girls of the covert op, where we will dress as students, secretaries, or humble sisters of the cloth, and our targets rarely give us a second glance. Little do they know that we're the blades that they never see coming. For instance, Trevor and Sister Marchand had exchanged pleasantries for weeks, ever since we discovered that he attends Mass 3 times a week. Major Harkin never thought that a traitor like Trevor would be so pious, but even he can be wrong at times. With our sights set, Harkin had sent in Sabine first as usual. She had cozied up to Trevor in his local favorite restaurant, and dressed up to a 9. She had red lips, a blonde wig, and a black dress, and made use of every one of her curves. But even her Veronica Lake looks didn't work on him. Instead, he wanted to look at the garden. Sabine had scoffed and told Harkin that Trevor must be nearsighted. Must be nearsighted. It was the first time that I'd seen unflappable Sabine look so very flapped, and I'd hidden my grin at that. Maybe that's petty of me, but I couldn't help it. Not when she tosses me snooty glances whenever she gets the chance. Tilly had tried her hand next, opting for the chatty bookseller who's far too friendly for her own good. On a warm day in May, she followed Trevor onto a stuffy metro car and plopped herself into the seat next to him. She chit-chatted about Nazis sponsoring rowing regatta and how fun it would be. Then she leaned into Trevor and whispered, "They're not so bad, the Germans, I mean. Wouldn't you agree?" But he didn't even look up from his newspaper. With our options running low, it was my idea to give Sister Marchand a try, but Major Harkin wouldn't hear of it. Every time I brought up the idea, he would shoo me out of his tiny office to return to his folders stamped classified, Zerfall. But Tilly helped me convince him in the end. We figured that Trevor might open up to a nun, and just as we hoped, he played right into our hands. Trevor takes me by the elbow. Are you hurt, sister? I don't believe so, I say, but I flash him a stricken look when I straighten. Oh, my ankle. Is it broken? No, I wince. I must have rolled it. Oh, you poor thing. He looks at me with such pity that I know I've played him like a record so far. I wish that Harkin were here to see me, but he'd likely get huffy at that the job isn't only halfway done, so I focus on the next step. Set the trap. I throw Trevor a sheepish smile. Forgive me for asking, but might you walk me to the courtyard? There's a bench where I can rest for a bit. Trevor hesitates. I don't think he can refuse a nun, or have I misjudged him? My worries soon vanish when he offers me his arm. Lead the way, sister. I lean on him while I hobble upon my poor bruised ankle. We're standing so close I can smell the sweat-stained jacket and think how easy it would be to slip my dagger into his side and up to his heart, but I need to question him first. My knife will have to be patient. Trevor helps me to the bench, and before he can turn away, I pull out a box of cigarettes from my pocket, dangling the bait. The box's edges were creased after jostling in my pocket, but Trevor stares at it like it's a treasured church relic, which isn't surprising with the war rations full in force. So during this time, not only cigarettes, but like cigarettes, alcohol, tea, coffee, food, flour, eggs, everything you can buy at the store was rationed to where you had like stamps. And so not only did you have to take your money there, but you had to take your stamp to show that you didn't buy too much that month or whatever. So cigarettes were like you didn't get them. So he's all excited about this. A small token for your troubles, I ask. Why, thank you, he says, snatching the cigarettes from my hand. I mask my smile. The cigarette I gave him was lined with sodium pentyl, a special concoction sent by the OSS Research and Development Branch. It relaxes its victims and coaxes the truth out of them. So it like calms them down and is like a truth serum. Please don't let Father know that I have these. I tuck down my chin, faking embarrassment. The Nazis have outlawed smoking for women. I suppose they don't see it very ladylike, but many French women had skirted around the law. I offer Trevor a match, and he can't seem to light the cigarette fast enough before he takes in a long draw. I hope your mama is well, I ask, waiting for the chemicals to seep into his bloodstream. We've missed her at Mass these last few weeks. Her health hasn't been the best, but I'll pass along your condolences, Trevor says, and takes a seat. I'm pleased to find that his eyelids are wilting like thirsty flowers. The calming effect of the chemical is at play. How has your work been going? Will I read more of your articles soon? Perhaps next week. My old witch of an editor has been giving me trouble about deadlines. The sodium pentyl must be working into his veins, because usually Trevor only tells me pleasant things about his job. It's a newspaper that shouldn't even be called that because its pages are full of German propaganda. So basically the Germans have control of the newspaper. So the only news that gets out is not from both sides. It's just what the Germans want people to know. Otherwise, it's not in there. So that's kind of how it works. As he drones on, I nod and pretend to be fascinated, all the while unscrewing the rosary to release the needle-thin dagger hidden inside of it. I decided to take my questioning in another direction. Tell me, monsieur, I say, how are things going at your other job? My other job? You know what I mean. I drop my sugar-sweet tone and grip the knife handle, ready to block his exit if he runs. How you've been passing Allied secrets to the Nazis? How did you? That isn't true. I've done no such thing. He drops the cigarette and fumbles to his feet, but I'm faster. Grabbing him by the collar, I thrust a knee into his belly to keep him from crying out before I force him to the cold stone of the courtyard. Don't lie to me, Trevor. We've been watching you. Our noses are inches apart as I thrust the blade to the underside of his chin. We? I don't elaborate. I should ask him about the Nazi handlers, but with him quaking like a frightened altar boy, I want to scare him a little more. I want him to feel the sliver of fear that those airmen felt when they had discovered that Trevor had duped them. 2 men died at your hand, I spit at him. We trusted you with their lives. You turned them over to the Germans. I had no choice. Mama needed her medicine, and I needed, new shoes? A fat cut of beef? I say. The color drains from his face when he realizes I've been watching him. The entire city might be starving, but why should you care? You're sitting at the best table in the house, drinking your wine and ordering your sauce for your steak. You're mistaken. I've never set foot in that place. I press the knife closer, shaving a tip of his stubble off, and that's when it breaks him open like a summer melon. Are you calling me a liar? I don't know. I truly don't know what the Nazis would kill them. Please, Sister Marchand, or whoever you are. Somehow I doubt that. Tell me the names of these Nazi liaisons. What are their ranks? They never told me any such thing. You must believe me. I thrust my elbow into his gut because he's squealing too loudly. Thick tears course down his pathetic face, and he's begging me to think of his mother. Please, oh please. But I'm not father. I can't be soft-hearted like an old priest. The Nazis robbed me of that when they killed Theo. The pain of his passing still chafes at my heart, and I'll never stop regretting that I didn't make things right before he died. Trevor and I go back and forth, but his answer remains the same. He doesn't know his liaisons' names or ranks. My mouth forms a grim line because I doubt he's lying. The chemicals should have drawn the truth out of him by now. With the interrogation finished, I need to be quick about what comes next. A slash across his throat, a quick flick of the handle, and that'll be that. The mission complete. Be done with it, Lucy. I pulled back my hand, my fingers trembled, and my palms filled with sweat. I nearly cursed aloud. My instructors told me this might happen, that the nerves always come before the first kill, but I was sure I wouldn't have problems taking out Trevor. He's a traitor, a coward, but the trembling worsened. What is wrong with me? Trevor gasped, Zerfall! I have information about Operation Zerfall. I snapped back into the moment, blinking hard at him. Zerfall! For weeks I've seen Harkin's desk buried in files that are stamped with that word. I'll tell you all about it, he continues. It'll change the course of the war. So for that, I decided to spare him for a moment longer. What do you know exactly? Hope shines on his face. If I tell you, you have to let me live. I can't allow that, but I say what he wants to hear. Tell me everything you've heard, and I won't cut you like a prize pig. You promise? I push the blade a hair deeper. You're not the one doing the negotiation. For good reason, I slide the knife towards the spot right under his chin. It's It's a classified operation. He talks so quickly the words knock into each other like bowling pins. I heard the Nazis whisper about it right before one of our meetings. What else? They said that Frauer had devised the operation himself. It's led by, what's his name? Reinhard. That's it, a man named Reinhard who's in charge. What exactly does this operation entail? They didn't say. His voice registered an octave higher, then I drive the blade deeper, breaking skin. It's supposed to change the course of the war. How? I don't know, he releases a sob. I don't know. His voice shakes with his whole body, and I doubt I'll get anything else out of him. Finish him now. I can hear Harkin telling me. That's all I know, he wails. You told me you'd spare me if I told you everything I knew. You promised. I promised you nothing, I whispered. I grip the knife tighter, but the trembling returns doublefold, and I stare at my hand. What's wrong with me? I try to shove my nerves away, but just then a truck engine roars down the road. My head jerks up automatically, and that's all the time Trevor needs to push me off. Helf, he screams in frantic German. Helf. I don't know if I said that right, sorry. I scramble to my feet, but my shoe catches on my skirt hem, and my knees crash against the street stones. I swear even louder. Trevor has seen my face. If I don't get to him soon, my skinny neck will be on the line with an arrest to soon follow. She's going to kill me, Trevor says. I'm mirroring the strides from the street. My fingers are still quivering as I pocket the dagger and reach for the gun. Subtly won't be in the cards tonight. Murmuring an apology to Major Harkin, I take aim and shoot the 9mm pistol. But something malfunctions. With my pulse pounding hard, I slap the magazine and fire again. This time the bullet strikes home. Trevor cries out and staggers across the street. He teeters at the edge of Seine and the river that splits the city in half. Gravity wins out, and he tumbles over the stone embankment. I hear a splash and nothing more. Relief hits me, followed by a queasy shaking in my gut. But before I can think about what I've done, the sound of muffled German shouts infiltrate my ears. Nazis. The patrols must have heard Trevor's cries. I need to run, but first I need to make sure he's dead. Springing down the road, I peer into the river to find Trevor floating in the black waters, his shirt ballooning around him. His broad chest has gone still, even though it was thick with breath only a moment ago. Target number 53 has been eliminated. The shouts close in on me, but I linger where I stand, frozen still. Tilly once told me about this moment, the first kill. I thought I was prepared, but... Move. I need to move. Ignoring the nausea swimming in my stomach, I race back through the alley just as the church doors swing open. Whirling around, I aim the pistol one more time and find Father gaping at me. He stares at the gun barrel and holds up his liver-spotted hands. What have you done, my child? He whispers. Where is Renee? I keep the barrel pointed at him, even though I don't want to shoot it. I need your silence, Father. Swear it to me. He hesitates before making the sign on the cross. I won't tell the Nazis what you've done. Swear on it. You have my word. I let the gun drop. Go back inside, I say. May God have mercy on your soul, Sister Marchand, or whatever your true name may be. He shuts the door and locks it in place. That's my cue to run. I fly through the maze of empty Parisian streets and the buildings around me blurring in one gray mass. With every step I take, the Father's words ring in my ear, whatever your true name may be. My skirt swooshes around my ankles, and I think, my name is Lucy Blaise. I'm 16 years old. I'm Theodore Blaise's little sister, and I'm certainly not a nun. What I am is the newest agent in a covert ops. So that's the first 2 chapters of The Darkest Hour. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'm excited because I have not read this book, and so I'm excited to read it with you guys. So have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow.